He had everything. An empire built on life-saving pills and polished boardrooms. But the one thing that shattered his perfect world came from the voice of a child he didn't know, asking a question that refused to leave his mind. Will you come see me? He didn't understand it then. But that invitation would unravel secrets his money couldn't bury. If stories about unexpected connections, buried regrets, and the quiet courage of children move you, tap the like button and subscribe. What happens when power meets innocence might just change your idea of what it means to show up for someone. It was the kind of rain that slicked the streets in reflective silver and turned yellow taxi lights into fleeting ghosts. The kind of day when umbrellas became shields and New Yorkers walked fast to pretend they weren't drowning. Inside St. Joseph's Medical Center, the world moved differently. Time bent under the weight of beeping monitors, plastic wristbands, and waiting rooms filled with people holding too much hope in too little space. Nathan Hale, CEO of Hale Therapeutics, stepped into the pediatric oncology wing like a man entering another galaxy. His Italian leather shoes clicked softly against the polished tile, his tailored suit untouched by the damp chaos outside. To everyone around, he looked like he belonged anywhere but here. And yet, here he was, for the quarterly goodwill rounds, a sterile ritual of photo ops, handshakes, and smiling beside sick children to make shareholders feel they were investing in empathy. He hated this part of the job, but as always, he played his role. Clipboard underarm, assistant on his heels, smiles rehearsed and distant. Each room he entered carried a different weight. A child with thinning hair, a teenager pretending not to cry, a parent trying to appear strong with bills stuffed in trembling hands. But none of them looked at him the way she did. Ellie Thompson was 7 years old and sat on the windowsill of room 408, as if she were watching a world she wasn't entirely part of. Her legs dangled just above the floor, white socks bunching around small ankles, and her hospital gown had been colored in with markers, little pink and purple flowers drawn carefully across the fabric. There was something intentional about her, a stillness that didn't belong to children. She had been watching him long before he noticed her. Nathan glanced up from his clipboard, expecting another polite nod or fearful smile. Instead, Ellie tilted her head and asked, plainly, "Do you work here?" He blinked. "Not exactly," he said, unsure how to explain who he was in language a child would care about. She studied him for a moment longer, then gave a tiny nod, as if deciding something. "You look like you're in charge," she said. "Or maybe you just think you are." His assistant chuckled nervously, but Nathan raised a hand. "It's okay," he said, eyes narrowing with interest. "Why do you say that?" Ellie shrugged. "You wear that suit like it's armor." Then, after a pause, she added, "My mommy used to do that, too, before she got sick." Nathan felt the hit of that comment deeper than he expected. Before he could respond, a soft voice from the bed behind Ellie said, "Ellie, don't bother the man. He's busy." It was her mother, pale, hollow-eyed. The foreline looped around her arm like a fragile tether. Her voice was the kind that had once been strong, now barely able to carry guilt. "I'm not busy," Nathan said before he could think better of it. And he meant it. That's when Ellie got down from the windowsill, walked up to him, and with all the gravity of someone twice her age, asked, "Mommy's really sick. She might not get to come. So I was wondering, will you come to my school play?" There were no cameras rolling, no press, no one but Nathan, the woman behind her, and the question. "I'm going to be a flower," she added, as if that sealed the deal. He should have smiled politely and excused himself. Should have made some vague promise or offered a teddy bear like he had in the last room. But instead, the question sat inside him like a splinter under skin, sharp, irritating, and impossible to forget. The mother, Lena, according to the chart, started to apologize. "She doesn't understand that you're important." Ellie finished for her, with a smirk. "I know, but everyone's important to someone." Nathan had no answer to that. Later, in the black car waiting for him outside, he couldn't focus. His phone buzzed with a dozen texts about a board meeting and a hedge fund acquisition. His assistant asked if he wanted to swing by the studio for a pre-recorded interview about patient-forward growth strategy. But Nathan just stared out the window, watching raindrops race down glass like gravity forgot them. "Mommy's really sick. Will you come to my school play?" He'd been asked 1,000 things by 1,000 people. Some wanted cures, others wanted favors, most wanted money. But this? This was different. It was an invitation, not a plea. And the worst part was, it sounded like someone else had asked him that once. A long time ago. He couldn't remember who. But the feeling stayed with him, all the way into the night. And so did the name on that hospital chart. Lena Thompson. Room 408. He told himself it was just a visit. One check-in to clear his conscience. But when Nathan Hale returned to room 408, he discovered something buried in that hospital room. Something that tied him to Ellie and her mother in a way no press release ever could. And once a promise is made to a dying woman, keeping it might cost more than money. Nathan didn't sleep that night. Not really. He lay in his penthouse overlooking the East River, the world humming beneath him like a machine too large to stop. The suite was dim except for the soft blue light of the skyline, but his mind was lit up with thoughts of room 408, of Ellie, her unflinching voice, and the way she'd asked him that question with no trace of hesitation. Most of all, he couldn't shake the woman in the bed, Lena Thompson. Her face was pale, but there had been something fierce in her eyes, something familiar in the way she looked at him. That night, Nathan asked his assistant to do something he hadn't asked for in years, dig. By morning, the facts landed like a blow to the chest. Lena Thompson, former registered pediatric nurse at Phoenix Children's Hospital. Commendations for service during the 2020 respiratory outbreak. Widowed. Diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer. Denied entry into an experimental drug program funded by his company just 3 months ago. The drug? One Nathan had fast-tracked after it saved his own daughter's life 7 years earlier. That was the moment something shifted. It wasn't guilt. Not exactly. Guilt was what he felt when he skipped his daughter's violin recital. This was something deeper. Something harder to name. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was memory. He canceled his meetings. Told the board he had a family matter. And at 2:37 p.m., Nathan Hale walked back into St. Joseph's with no cameras, no clipboard, and no press team trailing behind him. Just a man in a suit, unsure of what he owed and to whom. Room 408 looked smaller in the afternoon light. Lena was asleep when he arrived. Her body curled toward the window like she was reaching for something just out of reach. Ellie sat on a blanket on the floor, drawing flowers on paper hospital menus. She looked up, but didn't smile. "You came back," she said. Not surprised. Just expectant. Nathan crouched beside her. "I said I might." "No," she said, correcting him. "You didn't. You never promised." He stared at her. This tiny girl who spoke like she'd been burned before and didn't intend to make the same mistake twice. "I don't make promises unless I can keep them," he said, which wasn't true. Not entirely. She tilted her head. "Are you scared you won't?" He didn't answer. Because he was. Lena stirred then, eyes fluttering open slowly, confusion giving way to recognition. "Mr. Hale," she said softly. "This is unexpected. I came to apologize," he said. "About the trial program. About everything, really." She blinked. "I'm not your responsibility." "That's the thing," he said, voice low. "You might be." Lena looked at him, then with something that wasn't gratitude, wasn't anger. It was curiosity. "Because of Ellie?" "No," Nathan said, then hesitated. "Because of Sarah." The name seemed to hang between them like smoke. Lena's breath caught. "Sarah Lindstrom?" "She was my daughter's nurse," Nathan said. 7 years ago. Leukemia. Stage 3. Your Sarah was the only reason my kid ever smiled during chemo. She used to draw sunflowers on her 4 bandages. Said the flowers were stubborn, just like her. Lena closed her eyes. She did that for all the little ones. She told me once, Nathan continued, that every child needed one person who would never look away when things got ugly. I thought she meant the nurses. I didn't realize, he stopped. She meant the parents, Lena whispered. He nodded. Were someone willing to act like one? Silence settled again, thick with everything unsaid. Then Lena said quietly, Ellie's play is next Friday. If I can't go. Nathan understood. I'll be there, he said. And this time, it was a promise. Lena smiled, tired and sad and grateful all at once. She won't tell you, but she made that flower costume herself. Cut the fabric from old hospital gowns. It's the only thing she's had control over in months. She's strong, Nathan said. She has to be, Lena whispered. She's all I've got. Nathan looked at Ellie again. This child he'd only just met, yet couldn't stop thinking about. He saw something terrifying in her, a mirror, of the daughter he almost lost, of the man he used to be. I can help, he said finally. With the treatment. Lena's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. Not if it's pity. Not if it's just to clean a conscience. No, he said. It's not that. It's because your daughter asked me to show up. And because mine once asked me the same thing, and I didn't. Lena turned her face to the window. The light outlined the edges of her hair like a halo. Then do it. Don't for me. For her. Nathan looked down at Ellie, who was now pretending not to listen. But he knew better. She was absorbing everything. And for the first time in years, he made a vow that had nothing to do with profits or press cycles. Only people. I will. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for medicine. All she asked was that he show up. And when she did, he made a promise. But when the curtain rises and Ellie steps into the spotlight, Nathan Hale discovers that some promises don't just change a child's life, they change his forever. The auditorium was nothing special. Flickering fluorescents, folding chairs that creaked when you breathe, and a stage with wrinkled blue curtains stitched together by PDA volunteers. But to Nathan Hale, seated in the very last row, it felt like a cathedral. The air smelled like glue sticks and cheap perfume, and the chatter of proud parents filled every corner. But one chair in the front row stayed empty. Ellie's mother, Lena, had passed away 3 nights before the play. Nathan hadn't told Ellie yet. She stood backstage, flower crown slightly crooked, eyes darting between the curtain slit and her teacher. Is Mommy still too tired? She whispered. Nathan stepped in, kneeling beside her. Hey, he said softly, adjusting her costume with hands that no longer trembled when faced with vulnerability. Your mom told me to come in her place. I think she'd want you to shine tonight. Ellie looked up at him, uncertain. Will you clap really loud? I'll stand, he said, even if I'm the only one. When Ellie stepped onto the stage, shy at first, her hands clenched into fists, Nathan saw more than a little girl in a costume. He saw strength, grit, a spark of her mother's fight, wrapped in innocence. Her lines were simple. The sun helps flowers grow. But her voice carried more weight than anything Nathan had ever said in a boardroom. The applause came quickly, but not loud enough for him. So he stood, not just clapping, but cheering like she had just rewritten the ending to her story. Afterward, Ellie ran to him in the hallway, beaming. Did you see me? He knelt again, this time eye level. I saw everything. She paused. Mommy didn't come. Nathan inhaled slowly. Then, no, sweetheart. She's gone. But she saw you anyway. Ellie nodded. Just once. And then, with a bravery no child should have to carry, she reached for his hand. Can I come with you? He swallowed the lump in his throat. Always. Epilogue. Months later, Ellie stood beside him at a foundation gala. This time, in a real dress, not a flower costume. The Hale Thompson Initiative had just funded treatment for 200 children whose parents once felt the same despair Lena did. And every speech ended the same way. I made a promise to a little girl. And showing up for her changed everything.